So let's see here. So one of the things that I think certain people might know about is the old studio at Media Molecule.
Yes.
Some of you guys were saying that like the building was falling apart in places. How was that there when you were working on the game? And did you ever drink like the Coronas in the fridge or anything? I'm just saying this because in one of the tours they opened up.
Yeah, it's funny that, I mean, Media Molecule were not, I mean, they were called Media Molecule, but, this was obviously before the game had come out. And I guess the thing about that project was that, I'll get back to the building in a second, but,
yeah,
like when, so I mean, the first, delete. Delete that, or not. I really don't care. But the thing about the company at that time was, even though the game hadn't come out yet, there was quite a lot of hype around LittleBigPlanet, and that's tied into why I joined the company. I didn't join them for the hype, but I, like a lot of people, the first time I saw LittleBigPlanet was this. Actually, that's also, there's so many rabbit holes to go down here. It's crazy, but. The first time that I saw LittleBigPlanet and I knew what it was when it was announced, that the GC announcement in March 2007. And it just looked so cool. And I was like, I really want to work on that. And I was just thought it was amazing. And I really got it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I know what that needs. I know what the audio experience should be. It'd be wrong to say I knew what it needed to sound like, but I did have an affinity with its visual aesthetic in terms of, it looked a bit like a 1970s or 80s kids TV show almost. And at the time, the graphics engine was really pretty impressive. PlayStation 3 had been out for a few years at that point, a couple of years, I think. But it was really one of those first games that you were just like, oh, wow, this is something a little bit different and clearly a little bit special. So, yeah, I was really keen to apply for that job, and I'd actually seen the job previously, I think, because I was at Sony and I was looking to leave. My time there had just run its course. It was my first job in the industry and it was an amazing first job, but I was the main reason I left really was I was working on too many projects at the same time. I was working on like 3 or 4 things, and that's not really what I wanted from my work. I wanted to like go deep on a project and collaborate with the team, not just like, be busy spinning plates on a bunch of different projects and not really doing a great job on any of them as a result of being spread a little bit too thin. So it's the main reason I left, because otherwise it was an amazing place to work. And yeah, London studio sadly was shut down last year, so that cut deep. But yeah, the LittleBigPlanet just looked amazing, and from the moment it was announced, it had this sort of hype behind it. So although I'd seen the job advert for Media Molecule, I was like, well, I'd never heard of them because they hadn't done anything.
Right.
And although I'd played some of the games that some of the people who were founders of the company had worked on, that to me, like, I'm not actually that's not impressive. It's like, it's amazing that, there's a mixture of people from Bullfrog and Criterion. It's like, that's not impressive, but like, I don't personally look at a new company and it says people who from the makers of blah. I like, that doesn't really mean anything, because just because you worked on something, it means you worked on it, but it doesn't mean that the next game you make is going to be any good. Like, so there's no relationship between those two things for me. So I never really put much sort of truck in that. So yeah, basically Media Molecule were just this unknown random developer. They had a cool website. I remember that. It was full of what at the time I wouldn't have known was like Rex Crowell's artwork, with cool, like, probably at that time Flash animations or something. And it was just like pretty cool. And I remember like, oh, this is interesting. Like, they're clearly an interesting company, but like no idea what they're working on. They hadn't announced the game yet, so they couldn't sort of show you what the game was. Right. And I was like, well, Guildford, whatever, no thanks. And sort of brushed it off. But then when the game was announced, I remember like, oh, that's that company. wow, okay, interesting, and applied and got the job, which was great. But one other little random story before I get back to talking about the building. I had actually seen a little bit of LittleBigPlanet before it was announced, but I just didn't know what it was at the time. When I was working, so as I alluded to, I was just like really busy and working on too much stuff in that job at Sony's London studio. It was a centralized audio department, which is why I was working on so much stuff. And we also did a bunch of work for other Sony studios because we were in Soho in London, which is traditionally just like very media centric, lots of film post-production houses and stuff like that, and a lot of recording studios.
Right.
We would always, I would did a lot of voice recording and editing, and a bit of directing as well for third parties and second party studios.
Yeah.
So I remember someone from, actually it was a chap called Mike, who'd come down from the Liverpool studio, and Liverpool is where XDev are based. XDev are the external development, are like third party relations at Sony, and at least that's what it's called in Europe. And because they're based in Liverpool and they were working with Media Molecule, they're effectively Media Molecule's publishers, that team at XDev.
Yeah.
They were in touch with Mike, who was a sound designer at the Liverpool Sony studio, and they tasked him with helping Media Molecule with doing some sound for a trailer or something like that. And it wasn't a trailer that ever got released. It was just like maybe a little internal video to explain stuff to people at Sony or something like that. And Mike had been tasked with doing the sound for that. And I remember him not being too confident about what to do, because Mike's at that point, Mike's a great sound designer, very experienced, but at that point he'd basically been working on Formula One racing games for a good number of years. And so looking at this video of like Sackboy jumping about on like this sponge world, he was a bit like, what the hell do I do with this? And I remember looking at it and going, it looks pretty cool. And it's the kind of thing where, I would have actually enjoyed doing that. But I didn't know what it was. It was just some random video that Mike had that he was freaking out about. And so that was LittleBigPlanet. But I didn't know it at the time. And so, yeah, I'd actually seen the game, or it was a previs of the game rather than actually a game capture. But so I'd seen that, and I'd seen the company's website. So I'd probably had more exposure to LittleBigPlanet than obviously anyone outside of Sony. I just didn't know it yet, which is apropos of nothing, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. That it's weird how your paths cross with these things, and then I ended up actually working on it.
I think that's amazing.
So first time I was in the building was obviously for my job interview, and yeah, it was. So like it was quite an odd place to find, because it was above what we jokingly always refer to it as the toilet shop, which isn't really fair because it was a bathroom showroom. So it wasn't a very attractive building. It was just looked like a 1980s brick building, and the bottom was this bathroom showroom. So you could go in and see baths and tiles. It was that kind of business, and there was an office space above it, which was where Media Molecule were. And so you went down this little grubby alley to the side on the way to the car park, and then there was a little door up this very narrow flight of stairs up to the top of the building, the first floor. And above, sorry, it's just funny. Above the door, and other people have heard this story before because we love to talk about it because it's just ridiculous. But above the door was one of the toilets, which was next to the kitchen upstairs and the eating area where we had our lunch and stuff. And the toilet had the toilet pipe basically just came out, and it was directly above the door that we had to go through. And there were incidents where it was just leaking shit directly onto people as they went through the front door. I think that maybe only happened once, but and that, to be fair, that kind of plumbing incident can happen in any building. But something about the fact that it was this shitty looking building that we called the toilet shop, and it was leaking shit on the front door. You know, it helps to like paint a picture about a little bit how crummy the office was. And I've got, you know, millions of memories about the place I could talk about. But another sort of notable incident was the time that we were pretty sure it was our fault that the local electricity substation blew up, because we had, as you can imagine, this was like, not an ancient office, but it was, you know, it wasn't cut out to have people who on every single power socket were like plugging in, you know, multiple computers and dev kits and monitors and and yeah, there was a day where just like, the electricity substation near the building just popped. And on the plus side, it got upgraded and then we didn't have any problems after that. But I remember our electricity bills were horrendous. And I just remember Siobhan being like, I'll not say what I was about to say. But like, we weren't entirely sure if we were getting diddled or not with the amount of money it was costing, because it was so expensive. But then at the same time, you must have been burning through a lot of electricity. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember the name of the building, because I was going to say Way House, but I think that's actually Media Molecule's current office. I can't. And it's been knocked down. That building's gone now, the old one. It's been replaced by a very similar sized, but ultimately more modern building. I don't know if there's any game developers in it. That would be interesting to know.
It sure would, but at least they knocked down that, you know, that old bag, you know, with all the problems.
I don't know. It's like, I remember when part of the deal when Sony bought the company was that we got to move into the nice big, what at the time was big new office. I remember we had these conversations where we're like, I know it's really shitty, but it's kind of where the magic happened. So, you know, do you think when we move to this slightly slicker, more corporate office, we're going to lose a little bit of the Media Molecule magic? And I don't think that was of material difference. But of course, there's just so many happy memories about the time in the old the office above the toilet shop, because it is where we made that game, and that's I get emotional thinking about it, because it's it was a very, very happy time, and it's good stuff.